the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AVWeek, episode 195, recorded Friday, May 15th, 2015. Rack Rats.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek.
This is AVWeek, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I'm your host. With us this week is Mr. Phil Cordell. He is the Director of Engineering for M3. Holy cow. He's also known as Hi-Fi. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Tim. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Also with us is Tom LeBlanc. Tom is the editor of everything that EH Publishing owns, with the exception of CE Pro.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
You're welcome, sir. Actually, he doesn't do CE Pro or Electronic House, but everything else is right.
There's a great many things I don't do.
Oh, jeez. Never mind. Also, first-timer, so be nice to her, gentlemen. Her name is Julie Rolls, and she is from PSA Security. How are you, ma'am?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Absolutely. Tom and I met Julie at the NSCA BLC. So I figured, what the heck? Let's get somebody on from PSA and learn something. So first up, we're going to talk about some 4K stuff, just because, it's 4K. This is from Tom's group over at Commercial Integrator. Connects Pro uses HDBaseT to extend 4K 230 some odd feet. Phil, first thing on this, I'm not going to ask the silly question, which is, do we really need 4K to go 230 feet? Well, yes, we do. We need 4K to go like 1,000 feet sometimes. But the first thing that I found interesting is they're taking HDBaseT and they're, according to Connects, already pushing it to push 4K and to get it to over 100, over 50 feet. Is this something? I guess I should say it this way: did you expect, HDBaseT to be able to already do 4K, or is this something that you kind of felt was already in their bag of tricks?
I assumed that it was on the horizon because, it's just kind of the next evolutionary step in what we're doing. My question, I'm wondering if it's the Valence chipset that's prevalent in so much of our RxTX twisted pair stuff, Crestron, AMX, Extron. A lot of people are using that same chipset. And I'm wondering if they just found a way to tweak that chipset to carry the 4K, or if this is a completely new animal. So I'm actually looking forward to maybe playing with it when I get to InfoComm and checking it out and asking those questions. But yes, it's needed. It's going to be needed in the future. We still don't have a ton of fake 4K content, but we will, I hope, someday. Hey, remember that time we shot a 4K video, Tim?
We shot a 4K video, actually, about 1 year ago. And we'll shoot another one.
And we're going to do it again.
And we're going to do it again. Actually, Phil helped us out last year. He was the person responsible for the selfie, the AV selfie video and song. So we shot that in 4K because honestly, that's the displays that we were showing it on at InfoComm. So, do you have
first world problems?
First world problems, yeah. First world problems. So it was fun. So we're going to do it again. If you're interested, there's a couple of different blogs that Chris Netto and some other folks have written. Basically, just take pictures and put a hashtag of AV selfie during the week. So, Tom, Phil brings up a good question of whether or not this is the same chipset that all the other HDBaseT stuff is done, and they're just tweaking it, or is this a whole new animal altogether? What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know, Tim. I don't know. What I do know is that this is one of the early in an onslaught of sure to be many 4K PRs to go out as we lead up to InfoComm and after InfoComm. It's going to be so 4K heavy, and I think it's interesting that the conversation that sort of critiques the language in 4K PRs is starting to pick up, as we saw on an AVNation broadcast earlier this week. Some conversations about Extron's true 4K specification, and I think it's just going to be interesting to kind of watch the banter leading up to InfoComm, and everybody kind of like self-critiquing all the 4K language around the product announcements.
No, and that is interesting. And Tom, you're very kind. To specify exactly what he's talking about is we interviewed Casey Hall from Extron. He was very gracious to give us some of his time, and it was a very interesting conversation. We talked about their true 4K. We talked about the fact that they're not at InfoComm anymore. So the one thing here, and Phil, we'll bring it back to you on this one. The specification on this Connects thing is, let me specify this or say this exactly, allows installers to extend uncompressed 4K Ultra HD signals up to 230 feet. And then a few lines down, it says it supports full 4K at 30 hertz. This is a conversation I've been having for about a month or two. One actually is with one of your colleagues, Tom, Craig McCormick. Had it with guy from HDNation the other day. Had it actually on Wednesday of this week at the Streaming Media East conference in New York that I was able to moderate, and that's the nomenclature. That's the naming of 4K. You gotta love the CEA, and if you don't know who that is, that's the Consumer Electronics Association. They're encouraging their members to say, let's start marketing 4K as 4K UHD or UHD 4K. When in all reality, the UHD part is the one that kind of gets the 4K in there at really 3,000 some odd lines. Phil, is this an issue for the clients, at least the professional or the pro level clients? Maybe not so much for the residential folks, but for the commercial line.
I think in the commercial world, you're more likely to find people who are sticklers for the details. And I've run into a lot of technology managers who are very aware of the difference in true 4K and what people do, with the refresh rate to maybe manipulate the spec so that it seems like they're shooting out, hotter video than they are. I don't really think it's a huge deal, but I'm, working in Pro AV, there are always those guys, oftentimes the smartest dudes in the room, and sometimes they're the ones, tasked with making decisions for their companies about what technology to buy, and those guys will bust your chops. They know their stuff, and I think that's probably a little more prevalent in the pro world than it would be maybe on the resi side. Where if you're just sitting at your home theater and your screen looks great, all your friends are going to tell you it looks great, you're good to go. You don't have to nitpick the details.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get Julie in on this next story. How AVI SPL continues to dominate the industry, and it's a story from AV Network. It goes on to talk about how they have spread their wings, and they've got a lot of processes in their organization. And if you don't know who AVI SPL is, it is the largest United States-based integrator. They have offices literally from the Northwest to the Southeast and everything in between. But it goes on to talk about, an organization that size and almost like an organism that size, a company that size almost tends to be. Julie, when it comes to whether it's PSA or any other organization, when you're trying to get that many people in line and almost use the Borg type, assimilate, what are some of the processes that integrators can do and companies can do to get their people on board with their processes?
Gosh, Tim, I'm going to be real honest with you. I'm very new to this industry. I've only been with PSA about 6 months now, and my focus is more on training and development. So as far as the integrator industry, I'm not as familiar in a lot of these processes as I came from the automotive and diesel industry. I'm still learning the loops as well, to be real honest with you.
Well, and honestly, your education focus is why I wanted to ask you the question. Is that's one of the things that the article says that they do is they train their folks in these certain ways. So when it comes to training people and it comes to educating the folks down the line, how do you keep everybody on the same page, whether it's your class or your employees?
Wow, I think to keep everybody on the same page today, it's communication, and technology is definitely driving that. I think that's something that certainly I don't think we're the only company, but there's that challenge of how do you get to a greater market and keep everybody on the same page and communicating. I would just have to say it's a big integration of both technology and maintaining a human touch. I think that's a huge key to it. With technology, I think that we get so used to it, we don't have that human touch, and to really get people on board and all on the same page, you've got to maintain that human touch.
No, that's a very good answer. Mr. LeBlanc, a company of this size, you guys have covered them, your entire, the entire length of Commercial Integrator. What are some of the positives of having a group this size, a company this size of AVI-SPL?
Yeah, so I thought it was really interesting. In Lindsay's story, at the bottom, you see somebody posted a comment that was kind of like snarkily saying, dominate's a strong word, because she used the word dominate in her headline, but I think that is a pretty valid word to use to describe, AVI-SPL's role in the industry. And it doesn't mean superiority, but they're obviously dominating the industry in a lot of ways. In one respect, their footprint is ginormous, and everywhere you go, you're in an AVI-SPL market. And one of the reasons that I think that they're kind of leading the industry in terms of at least presence is that they have really good infrastructure within their organization. So like the event that Lindsay's story is about is their annual sales summit thing that they do,
yep,
which I've been to in the past. And when you go to something like that, that's when you really get, you really kind of walk away impressed with the way they do things down there. Like at one point, they'll bring the press into a room and they just kind of sit the press people on one side of it. I mean, it could have been different this year for all I know. I wasn't there, but they sit the press people on one side of the room, and then they kind of line up a whole team of executives, each that has a very kind of specific area of the market that they're in charge of. And when you get a chance to ask those guys questions and watch them kind of like dive deeply into their respective parts of the business, you get a lot of respect for that organization and how well or how much they worry about the little things. And I think the big thing that comes out of that, from a reporter's perspective, is AVI-SPL is always a good company to ask questions about what's coming next, because they have the time to devote personnel to trying to figure that out and to researching it and kind of vetting it. So you never feel like when you're asking questions as a reporter to AVI-SPL, they're just kind of throwing stuff up against the wall. You kind of feel like they've also been talking about that stuff internally, largely because they have the infrastructure that allows them to spend time doing it. So AVI-SPL, they're a pretty impressive organization. You can say what you want about them, but they have a lot of very positive things going on for them.
The other thing you have is they're a good company to ask those questions, because they're going to have had conversations with manufacturers who may or may not feel free to tell Tom LeBlanc, editor of Commercial Integrator magazine, or Craig McCormick or Lindsay Adler, what's coming down the pipeline. But they darn well better tell AVI-SPL what's coming down the pipeline. So as they're doing jobs and as they're doing designs, they know what's coming. So, they're also a good resource for a reporter to maybe pick up on one or two things that that maybe they probably wouldn't have gotten directly from the manufacturer. So that's awesome.
That's a great point. The first time I went to that sales event that they have for AVI-SPL, the thing that really struck me was the size of the show floor. And Lindsay in her article kind of commented that they scaled that back for a few reasons, but they put on a trade show that in my mind was very significant. It was if you were to compare it to like some of the regional events in this industry, it was about 10 times that.
Wow.
And it really impressed me that an integration firm could warrant all these manufacturers deeming it so important to spend the time and money and resources to, all that it takes to plan a presence at a trade show just for one integrator. And it does take a lot of time to do that. So I think it's reflective of how important AVI-SPL is.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. All right, Phil, from the opposite side, what are some of the drawbacks of not necessarily, obviously your M3 is an integration firm, so there you can take it from that aspect, but from the industry aspect as well. What are some of the drawbacks of having a company this size, in our space?
Well, I think whenever a company gets that large, it's important for them to have processes to help the work continue to move through. And from what I've read, I believe that they do, and that is, as an integrator, I find their structure quite impressive as well. And I think that's something that everybody kind of would love to be in their boat at some point, that your firm does so well that you just keep gobbling up territory, because your company culture and your work ethic and the way you do things is superior to the way everybody else in your area does them, that you just kind of take over everywhere that you go. And I think AVI-SPL has done an excellent job of growing that footprint. But obviously it's just as with any other business, you can get too top heavy, and all of a sudden, maybe guys aren't getting the support they need on the engineering side or design side or quote side or who knows what. And I don't have the insight into their processes at that level to know whether or not all their people are getting what they need. But I would assume that those are the types of issues that would arise in an AV firm if you got too large.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, AVI-SPL is where I met one of my favorite AV tweeps. Her symbol is her name on Twitter is AV Jessica. It's Jessica Spicer. I don't know. Actually, Spicer is not her last name anymore. She got married a few months ago. So, but if you're at InfoComm, check her out. All right. Next story we're going to talk about here is a brand spanking new power strip. But don't turn off the podcast quite yet. There's a reason I bring this up. This is freaking genius. All right, and I'm not using that term lightly. It's flipping genius. If you're watching the video, it's a power strip, and how do I put this? It's a power strip that lets you put several plugins together without covering up the other ones, because it's all one giant, one long ground, one long left and right side. It's absolutely genius. So here's the thing. Here's the story. This is from Julie Jacobson over at CE Pro, which is one of Tom's coworkers. The guy who innovated, his name is Joe Whitaker. He is putting it up to a company called Quirky, and what you have to do is you've got to basically give it a thumbs up or thumbs down. So I'm going to ask you three whether or not this makes a whole lot of sense for your clients or your customers. Mr. Phil, we'll start with you. Yes or no on the? It's actually the name of the thing is called the Slide. SLYDE.
Electric slide.
I'm sorry, very nice.
It's electric.
Oh gosh.
Big thumbs up from an integration standpoint, because you have no idea how many little whips and things we've had to buy to optimize your power. Either that or you're buying a whole another rack mount conditioner or or strip or whatever. So yeah, this is solving an age-old problem of the rack rats, as I just made up to call ourselves.
I like that, rack rats.
Yeah.
All right. Julie, from your standpoint, whether it's you personally in the office or the folks who are at PSA, does this make sense?
To me, it seems like it would, for the space utilization and organizing of your connections. My only question is do devices interfere with each other in the power source when they're right next to each other and there's no separate separator between them?
That's a good question. That would be one that we could give Phil to check it out and test it for us. Mr. LeBlanc, from your standpoint, does the electric slide make a whole lot of sense?
I guess if it works well. I just think it's funny. Julie is one of the industry's foremost power strip reporters. This is the category.
We'll do a timeout. What?
No, I'm just kidding.
No, I
Joe
wouldn't
Whittaker,
doubt it. She's been doing it long enough, but yeah.
Joe Whittaker he's a blogger for CE Pro and an integrator, and that's why it's an appropriate story for CE Pro. But I don't care for the name Electric Slide because it kind of taps into one of my lifelong pet peeves. How is it that everybody other than me who's ever attended a wedding knows all the different moves to the Electric Slide?
Okay.
I don't understand.
Okay, no, here's the thing. So, Tom and I are the exact same age, roughly. I think I'm actually a few months older than he is. So, Tom, I'm going to talk to you as a fellow Gen Xer. You obviously were not paying attention in high school because not only was it every wedding, it was every prom, it was every dance, it was everything, every social event we went to.
I wasn't paying attention. Maybe I wasn't invited to the social.
Well, maybe that's a whole nother story. I can't help you with that one then. Wow. Okay. All right. From Installation International, an opinion piece about the opportunities from surveillance and access control for the integration firms. Julie, we're going to start with you on this one. It's an interesting topic that we've actually covered this a couple of times, and so I wanted actually, since we have Julie on, I wanted to get her take, and then you and Phil and Tom's on this. Is there? I mean, I guess I shouldn't say is there. What are the opportunities for surveillance? What are the opportunities for security in the residential and or commercial installation for integrators?
What are the opportunities? Boy, I think that the opportunities are everywhere and not just in residential and or commercial. Every night I'm watching the news and almost every night on the news I'm seeing, another police station or district that is now carrying cameras and another way of surveilling the public. And every time I see these news reports, I just think, wow, what an incredibly growing industry and what great opportunities, regardless of whether you are commercial or residential. It's I know I've heard that we are on camera on average over 200 times a day, the average American, and I know that's only going to increase. So to me, that says good money for this market and great opportunities.
All right. Phil, from your standpoint, what are some of the opportunities that we have, whether it's commercial or residential?
I can just speak from experience on the commercial side. We recently launched a structured cabling division a little over a year ago, and it's finally starting to shake out the way that we had hoped and planned, which is that we get in there earlier during the construction process and get in with the technology managers, with the people making decisions earlier than the AV is typically discussed. And because perhaps we've already won that bid or that contract to do the structured cabling, we kind of get the first look on the AV side, and vice versa. When we're in there, putting in conference rooms, anything of that nature, if they haven't yet addressed security needs, surveillance needs, or certainly data cabling needs, then we're right there for them to help take them the rest of the way. So I think anytime you can kind of cross-pollinate the markets like that, keep it all under one roof and expand your capabilities, it's a good thing for business.
All right, Tom, from your standpoint, whether it's commercial or residential, what are some of the opportunities that the integrator has for these?
I think they're significant. A couple of years ago, I remember a really common kind of buzz term in like the AV conversations was about how like firms have to do a better job of becoming business partners with their clients, and part of that involves being able to provide them with valuable information that kind of happens post-installation, and being able to continually provide them with something that helps them to run their businesses better. And I think, IP surveillance is one of the areas that kind of allows the security integrators to take even more of a stake in that. Like if you're an integrator that has retail clients, being able to provide information about the way people are moving around a store, how long they're stopping in front of a particular display, seems really valuable to the client, especially a client who's sophisticated enough to do something with that information. And then, when it comes to like beyond surveillance, like access control, all sorts of corporate clients are, accessing information that comes from their access control systems, the comings and goings of their employees, and storing data about the different people in their organizations and who's coming in and out of their doors. I think we're at the start of a very significant conversation about that.
So would you recommend, back to the partnership, would you recommend partnering with some of these firms, or just trying to kind of do it on your own?
I don't know that I'd make a recommendation, but I know I apologize if I get any of this wrong, but I believe that Vector Security, which is a very prominent Pittsburgh area security integration firm, and is actually very good at dealing with analytics, did partner with a firm to help them to manage analytics for their customers, and being able to provide that value is something that they obviously deemed important enough to make an investment in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, another couple story, actually one more story, and then we're gonna get to a new little segment here. This comes from our buddy Julie Jacobson, the foremost power strip authority in the AV industry. It's a blog post called this is the title, "A Bunch of Bull. They're Not My Customers Anyway." And what Julie's talking about are the DIY folks, right? I'm not going to say full disclosure, but just as an aside, we have a DIY show here on AVNation. Tim Gray and Tony Zotti do a really good job of talking about everything from do-it-yourself home automation to do-it-yourself leather. And I'll let you go to that part of the site and check them out for yourself. Some really good shows. But she goes on to say, these are the folks that may very well screw up, right? May or may not, right? They might install an Arduino system, or find some old X10 in a garbage can somewhere and put it in to control the lights. But they might get to a point where they need your help, installation and integrators. So Phil, is Julie right? Are they your customers still, even though they're trying to do it themselves, or is it would you rather just kind of let them be on their own?
Well, this is probably more of a residential type issue, but my typical response to this stuff is I'm always glad to help. If I've got the time, I'll help friends, I'll help certainly people in the biz, and it has happened that we've helped out people on their home installations that ended up being decision makers in their companies and could help us on the business side, doing business to business commercial work for them, because you certainly can get all jacked up from things you read on the internet and think you can install an entire system yourself with no prior experience because it's just that easy now. But that's not always the case, man. Experience is invaluable, and so just having configured a switch or terminated the cabling, whatever the case may be, all that stuff. If somebody has never done that before and they think it's just a walk in the park, absolutely, they're potential customers or new friends to help out with that stuff, and hopefully that blossoms into a working relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom,
the only thing worse than doing AV is doing AV for free.
Amen, brother.
You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir. Tom, from your standpoint, does Julie have a point? Are these folks potential customers, or would you say that integrators should just kind of leave them to their own devices?
Yeah, I think the way I read the story is a little bit more broadly. So I don't think she's just talking about DIYers. I think what she's really talking about is a problem in both the residential and to a lesser degree in the commercial market, where integrators kind of frame what their customers ought to be and need to do a better job of thinking beyond those parameters. So, she brings up a very good example in the article, which is that in the residential market, you go back 4 years ago, most integrators will almost universally dismiss the whole concept of Sonos being something that they would ever consider installing. What they didn't anticipate was that the way homeowners were consuming home technology was changing, and Sonos was more in line with what the modern and evolving technology-enthused homeowner wanted. So integrators, in my opinion, had too limited of a scope of what they ought to be doing in order to provide value to homeowners. And I think there are a lot of lessons that come from that story, that come from Julie's story, that go beyond just DIYers. And I think commercial integrators can also take a lesson that they shouldn't try to define what their clients need them to do. They should try to determine and strategize based on what they think that their clients' evolving needs are going to be. And that's what I took away from the story.
Okay, very good. And Julie, from your standpoint, would you advise the folks there at PSA, the members there, to, like Tom said, you know what, help anybody out, and don't define who your client is, I guess, beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a potential returning customer in the future. It's another way to spread word of mouth about your business, and any sort of spreading of the word of your business, through word of mouth is going to be beneficial to you. I've heard the stat that for every good shopping experience, a customer may go tell 1 to 2 people. For a bad shopping experience, they're going to go tell a minimum of 8 to 10. So you're going to jump in and you're going to help somebody out who might be that DIY or went to Costco to get their system or wherever else. But to me, this is a potential opportunity to boost that word of mouth and good marketing and advertising for your company.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, as we kind of wrap up here, this is a new segment that my buddy George Tucker has suggested we're going to do, and I liked it. He did it a couple weeks ago. So Mr. LeBlanc, editor of both Commercial Integrator and Tech Decisions, we're going to give you a few minutes to talk about what the community, what the folks at Commercial Integrator and Tech Decisions are talking about, sir.
Okay. So the first story that I wanted to talk about was one that I wrote, which was about how marketing ain't what it used to be. And what struck me, I've always had a lot of respect for the folks who do marketing. I think it's a challenging job. I think that it's one of those areas in which if business is going badly, marketing is always blamed. Sometimes the marketing staff is affected when times get bad, maybe before it affects other parts of the company. And when things are going well, marketing tends not to get a lot of the credit. So I have a lot of respect for the marketing folks in the industry. And I just think it was important to pay attention to how challenging and diverse what it means to be a marketing person in this industry has become. It's not really about getting your name out there anymore. It's more about getting out there and establishing yourself as a thought leader. So almost everybody that I talked to for this article was really, really focused on creating content. And it's not even so much about like advertorials or anything like that. It was more about like finding platforms to, establish yourself as a thought leader, writing smart columns, being a source in other people's articles, doing short videos, and then being really savvy with social media and with other types of outreach and being good at getting content out there. And, to me, I think, that position has changed a lot, and it's just worthy of paying a lot of attention to. But one anecdote from the story, which I thought was really interesting, one of the sources that I talked to, who we all know, John Green from Advanced AV, yep. I was interviewing him, and I was trying to get at how he decided to create his Twitter persona, which if you follow him on Twitter, he's funny. It makes me laugh. But I think that companies often struggle with what they want to do on Twitter. And I asked a lot of questions to the different folks about their Twitter strategies. And I thought his point was really interesting. He was saying, there's no difference between me, making a little joke on Twitter than there is with me, in a sales role, being out on a golf course and telling a joke. And I thought, I really like that. I really like the way he sort of encapsulated, what you want to do with Twitter is you want to figure out who you are and what you're good at, and you want to project that. And you don't want to try to be something that you're not. So I like that story. I don't know. Is this also kind of a round table forum, Tim? Does
Sure,
anybody
absolutely.
else have any comments on, how the way companies are going to market has changed a lot over the last few years?
You know, it's interesting that you say that, Tom. I'm currently working with a sales and marketing committee here at PSA, and we just had a big conference last week, PSA Tech. And one of the things was I had asked my marketing committee, sales and marketing committee, to be involved with the roundtables and acting as subject matter experts. You know, a lot of the integrators said, I don't feel that I'm the expert, and then I honestly don't feel very comfortable being put in that position. And I think a lot of it is due to so many of the changes in the industry and much of what you were talking to.
Yeah, I can say at our firm we've hired somebody exclusively to do our marketing who's got an AV marketing background, because it's different than, you know, your typical marketing gig, I think. And it's important to understand, you know, how important it is to do the video, as you mentioned, in the case studies. You know, that's something that we really focus on, because if you're trying to sell a custom system, you know, you'd like to have other cool custom systems to point to and say, we can do this and more for you. And so that's, you know, maybe a little more outside of the box than your typical marketing folks who can just push the same product over and over and over.
Yeah.
Almost everybody I talked to for the story was trying to put together some kind of an AV hip hop video.
Well, are they lucky? Send them up.
So, Tim, I'm sure you want me to move along to the next story. So the next one was about, this was a profile that I really enjoyed writing. I think we called it something like the golden rules of business, how to have a good exit plan or something like that. I'm sure you'll see the headline.
How to retire with almost no regrets.
Right. So I write these profiles a lot. And this is one of my favorite ones that I ever got to write, because this guy had a good career. And when I say a good career, I mean, I have no idea how much money he made. What I mean is he just approached it in a very organic way. I'm trying to think of the right word, but he did everything the right way. He started his company after, you know, being in a role in which he had a lot of interaction with other integration firms, and he kind of took note of the things that they did right and a lot of the things that they did wrong, and he really tried to, you know, start a company doing things the way manufacturers and customers, the way everybody else would want a company to treat them. And things grew, you know, things happened to the company and regionally for the company. He had relationships that kind of led to it being successful. And in the end, you know, he stepped away into semi-retirement earlier this year. And when he was doing the interview with me, he talked about how he has one regret in terms of the way he ran his business. And the one regret was that he feels like he gave people too much leeway, or he gave them too much credit. In other words, he was too good to some employees who maybe were taking the slack and running with it a little bit too much, and you know, he was giving them too much slack with which to hang themselves, essentially. And you know, my comment to him was, if that's your one regret, that's not a regret. That's something that at the end of your career, you're going to feel pretty comfortable with the fact that you were willing to give people, you know, so much leeway to succeed or fail, and that you were so forgiving to your employees. This was a good story about a guy who did a good job running his company, and I really hope everybody reads this one.
Yeah, and Mike, I met Mike for the first time at the NSCA BLC, and he's the new NSCA president. Great guy. He really is. So. Yeah.
The next story, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just if I could comment on that, I'll say I've read quite a few of the profiles as well, and this one, not to sound corny, but I mean, it was inspiring. You know, it was, because that's, as an integrator, that's the deal. That's what you want to do. You want to be able to roll with the punches, scale up for growth, find the right people, and create that culture that he so clearly had there, where people just love coming to work. And we've kind of got that here as well, where subs that work with us in different companies say it just feels different. You know, people like being here. So it was really great to read his experience in that, and to read how he, you know, kind of set it up to keep it going even after he stepped away. So great article.
Thank you. I wanted to talk a little bit about a K-12 Tech Decisions article. And by the way, we're in the midst of a soft relaunch or refresh of the K through 12 Tech Decisions site. So we definitely do appreciate it if people check out the site and let us know if there are any hiccups or anything like that. We're in the soft launch phase. So, please check it out.
Yeah,
but anyways,
it looks much different.
Yeah, it's a lot different. It's awesome. We're really, really happy with it. Interesting trend that I think is something that integrators ought to be paying attention to, K through 12 integrators. The way classrooms are designed has changed significantly over the last few years with, philosophies like the flipped classroom and, the way Chris Iwinski, who wrote the story, the editor of K through 12 Tech Decisions, puts it, teachers aren't so much the distributors of knowledge as they are the facilitators of knowledge nowadays, meaning they're not talking at students, they're helping students to, come to or arrive at the knowledge themselves and then kind of discuss it in a different kind of form than what, all four of us are used to from when we were growing up. My teachers were mean growing up. They talked at us. But the way classrooms are designed is very different, and for any K through 12 integrator, there's an opportunity to have a conversation with all your K through 12 clients about what they ought to be doing to kind of reflect this trend, and for them to get very ahead of it, and to do some research and establish yourself as an integrator who can, help school districts evolve to meet this new demand. So this was an interesting story to me. Tim, you have a interesting perspective on the education market. Have you noticed this kind of flipping around trend?
Yeah, it is. And what's interesting is you've got. So I used to be a tech manager, and then I've got two kids in school, and actually the picture there from the article is exactly my 9-year-old's classroom. Right? They have the 4 different desks. They're all facing each other. They have each little pod or each little collaborative space allows the students to kind of work together. The teacher is able to go from pod to pod to pod, helping the students kind of get the information and facilitate the learning. But they also have the technology portion, which is one central location for the teacher to do kind of a more established presentation. So yeah, it's a neat thing to watch and see. We've got a couple of folks that Tom, you're aware of, that folks like Ernie Bailey at UAMS that have been doing flip classrooms for about a year and a half now, with some pretty positive results.
So yeah, additional story that I wanted to talk about. This is one. This is submitted by an integrator, Synergy Media, which is also based in or around Pittsburgh. Bill, he just has an interesting perspective with this column. He's just kind of challenging the conventional notion of going to your clients and talking to them about return on investment, ROI. And to me, the reason he wrote the article, I think, is that he's recognizing that simply talking about ROI sells what integrators do short, in my opinion. So you can talk numbers, you can talk about how much it costs to invest in a technology, and you can talk about what it saves the client on the back end. But by only doing that, integrators are leaving out a lot of other factors that provide a lot of value to their clients. So he brings up the example of you can sell video conference and you can talk about the ROI of saving money on travel. And there's a definitive answer to that, and that might sink in with the client. But integrators are selling themselves short if they don't talk about, the value of being able to, have more of those meetings because you're home. The value of having employees who are happier because they get to go home at night and see their families and sleep in their own bed instead of traveling on the road. There's a lot of sort of intangible benefits to so much of the stuff that integrators do, and I just kind of like Bill's point of view, and I really recommend that article.
Yeah, if we could put that in a presentation, and as you're presenting the integration plan, also put in there, yes, this costs $10,000, but you're going to be able to be home or whatever the the intangibles are. So
yeah, that is the tough part.
Yeah, it is. All right. One other last quick story. It's not really up for, you guys can comment on it if you want. But InfoComm this week, announced their award winners for 2015. We'll put a link on it. But a couple of notables, mainly people who have been on AVNation. The rest of them are pretty cool too. But our buddy Paul Zealy, CTSD from AMX, is getting the Educator of the Year award. Ron Camden, Vice President of Global Sales for Biamp, is getting Volunteer of the Year award. And then a gentleman that'll be on this program in about 2 weeks, Jeremy Caldera, will get. He's from ZDI, just north of here in Bloomington Normal, Illinois. Will get the Young AV Professionals Award. And actually, ZDI was the first Apex company back in the fall. So. All right. Thank you guys so much. Miss Julie, thank you for dealing with us and suffering through. And Julie Rolls is from PSA Security. Where can people find out more about PSA Security or you?
Well, we're currently transitioning to a new website, but as of right now, you can find out more information about PSA Security Network at BuyPSA. That's BUYPSA.com. And PSA Security Network is a co-op of security dealers and integrators. So, we're always looking for new members and interested parties. So please reach out to me.
All right, very cool. Mr. Tom LeBlanc, editor of both Tech Decisions and Commercial Integrator. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Absolutely. And where can people find out more about you or Commercial Integrator?
Well, we are in that soft launch phase of K through 12, K-12techdecisions.com. We want you guys to tell us what you like about it, but also point out hiccups so we can fix them. It's a soft launch. Also, the other tech decision sites, corporate tech decisions, higher ed tech decisions, and worship tech decisions, commercialintegrator.com. You can follow Com Integrator or LeBlanc Tom.
All right, that is on Twitter. And last but not least, my buddy Phil Cordell, Hi-Fi. A very, very fast-rising star. Now he is the Director of Engineering at M3 and also the AV Pro. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. You probably know. Find me on Twitter, _AV_Pro. I don't know if you noticed my officially licensed AVNation gear here.
Very nice.
Got a mug here. Yep, and actually, I'm a collector of all things AVNation. I was down on Canal Street looking for officially licensed AV gear from AVNation. I found some bootleg stuff. I found this AVNation stapler, which is something that I'll actually use a lot, so that's nice. And then, you know what else they just happened to have? It was AVNation Instant Oatmeal. I mean, that just seemed really random, but it makes sense because I like to start every day with AVNation.
Well,
so it goes great with breakfast,
Oh, man. Oh, I got nothing after that. I don't. Yeah, wow. Yeah, the Kickstarter finally came to a conclusion. That's what the T-shirt and the mug. Phil was nice enough to be one of our sponsors and had so many interesting hurdles, as it were, with the swag that we gave away. But finally got all that out, and it's on its way. If you haven't gotten it yet, let me know. But Phil will be at InfoComm. Tom will be doing the John Green thing this year, which is doing it through social. So if you're interested in what we're doing, go by the website avnation.tv, avnation.tv. We are doing something kind of cool, kind of neat. We've got some underwriters who are coming up alongside us and helping us do certain things like the tweet up, like this, that, and the other. The tweet up will be Thursday, June 18th from 4 to 6 p.m. in room W223A at InfoComm. Our booth is 6667. Tom, do you know your booth number yet?
I should have come prepared, Tim.
All right,
but I did not.
Research it while I'm talking for a second here, and I'll come back to you if you can.
Okay.
Our booth number is 6667. Both of those are in conjunction with Hall D. But we've got, I would like to thank our underwriters right now. We have HDBaseT, Draper, Vadio, and of course our buddies at Middle Atlantic. So if you think that we're cool, if you think that they should be doing that, well, I want you to thank those folks as well. And also my company, Innovad Innovations and Design, are doing so as well. So we'll be giving it more information about what that means to be an underwriter, what is all involved. But these are some folks that think that what we're doing here at AVNation is kind of neat and kind of cool, and they want us to keep doing it. So do you have it there yet, Mr. LeBlanc?
No. If you kill 20 more seconds.
20 seconds. I can do that. All right. We've got some really cool programs coming up. I've done an awful lot of specials this month. One was with Stuart Wrench from IEG talking about a cool $1.8 million they got in round funding. Another one was with our buddy Jennifer Willard, founder of Women in AV Wave. So check that out. And also, Tom mentioned earlier, the Vice President of Marketing for and Sales for Extron was Casey Hall. So all of those are on our website. Tom.
You are a pro, Tim. Good work. Booth 2687.
Holy cow! You're early. Much. You must have slipped somebody a 20.
Yeah, this is news. This is a new booth number as of today.
Wow.
Breaking news.
Good for you guys. That's awesome. Yeah, we pissed somebody off. We're over in D. So. So, go see Commercial Integrator's booth. Go see our booth. We'll be doing some stuff, and yeah. But go by the website avnation.tv. Avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. This has been AV Week.